The Boy and the Heron, a Studio Ghibli movie that came out recently that I really wanted to see in theaters, but the few showings it had were in the middle of the day, and I have a day job, and yes, it was just very disappointing that I didn't get to see it in theaters because when I watched it at home, I kept thinking, wow, this is quite lovely and visually interesting, and I definitely would have enjoyed it on the big screen. People can talk about how streaming is so convenient, but part of movie magic is the hugeness when you see it like in a theater. So that was a loss. But anyway, I saw it and I really liked it. I liked it much more than I was expecting to. Now, Studio Ghibli can have either quite lovely, almost fairy tale like fantasy sort of stuff, and then it can have very, very boring stuff. And I was willing to accept it if it was boring and not really hope for the magic stuff because I think part of it is nostalgia, but it proved me wrong and it was magical. It it did all the things I like seeing in Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle and Princess Mononoke, but it was still its own thing and that was special. So what's the story? No surprise, it's a bit of a downer plot where a boy recently just, lost his mom in a fire. She was working at a hospital and, the fire got her, poor thing. And his dad remarried in like 2 minutes to her sister. Ugh. Oh, and Auntie Mom is now pregnant with his cousin brother. And everyone seems to be cool with this. The boy, he is polite and stoic and doesn't say he's upset about it, but you can tell by the fact that he doesn't want to talk and he politely avoids him as much as possible that he's not happy with this. Okay, he misses his mom. It's still fresh. It totally, totally makes sense. Now, in Auntie Stepmom's defense, she tries so hard to be kind to him and make him feel included in their new house. And, she cares about him, not just because he's her nephew and, a reminder of her sister, but he's also just a little boy, and now she's, that's her husband's kid, too. Yeah, the incest in this movie really creeps me out. And the dad, he also tries to show how much he loves his son. He doesn't listen to him, but he does other things to try and show that, he wants his kid to be happy. He pays attention to him, but only so much. It's more that he feels successful in his job and he wants to rub that off with his son, but it's not really what the son needs. There's a lot of like the parent perspective in this where they think what they're doing will make the kid happy. They think it's a good idea, but the actual results, like, showing off their wealth in front of the new school, which is in the country, of course, Miyazaki, yeah, it gets the kid beaten up. Yeah. Ugh. Other characters in this movie, for some reason, the house staff of this wealthy-ish family is all made up of cute little old ladies. They don't all look like, the boss from Spirited Away. But yeah, I love how Studio Ghibli always manages to add little old ladies. And they're slow, they're hunchback, they have bad habits, especially with smoking. But they're also considerate. They also genuinely, want the kid to be happy. They fuss over him to make sure, his boo-boos are kissed. And that's nice. But what gets interesting is, there in some kid fantasies where it might seem like he's having a dream of something more interesting happening and might not. In this case, there's a heron that keeps knocking on his window and has teeth. Herons don't have teeth. Birds don't at all. Their beaks are their teeth. Anyway, this heron is bringing some magical elements into this kid's life and trying to lure him, like, into his, like, abandoned observatory temple. Again, this family has a lot of weird relatives. And yeah, what I really liked, and here's a little bit of a spoiler, is that they make this very clear that it is not a dream sequence. They just happen to live next to magical creatures. And so the kid, kind of like, when James went in that peach, he goes on an adventure that is beautiful and wild and in a very Japanese anime sort of mood to me. Makes so little sense but feels right. It feels like a dream, where one part kind of bleeds into the other, and while it doesn't make sense, it feels right. It's not all just metaphors of how he should, treat his new family better or his old family with new roles better. Ugh. No, it's just this kid going on an adventure, and he seemed intelligent but bored at home, so he needed that. He needed to have a little fun. He meets magical characters, he meets people, kind of, who are in a magical land, they teach him stuff, he does a little work, and God, I love watching kids actually do work and apply that they're not useless and stupid. I love that. I don't see it enough in real life. So, yeah, the whole mood of it was very good. It reminded me of watching other, like, Hayao Miyazaki, and yes, he returned for this movie. I read somewhere that it was kind of based off his life. I think his mom passed away in the same, like, manner when he was a kid. Aww. Yeah. Anyway, it reminded me when I watched the old, Miyazaki movies that I really liked, with its magical fantasy and such, and how everything's beautiful and slightly dangerous and sickly. And then it also felt like a new thing because we were in a new environment, this kid had new problems, and he was handling it in his own way. Now, all Studio Ghibli heroes, and honestly mostly heroines, will go through with it with just, determination, but this kid was like so stoic. It's so weird that you're like 9 or 10, maybe 12. Let's say at least 11. He's 11 years old, but he's so serious. And it's done in an almost ridiculous way that it makes sense, but I liked it. Oh, and I did see, like, the dubbed version too. And I gotta say, like, who they chose to, do the voice acting for the Heron is hilarious. It was Robert Patterson, Edward Cullen from the Twilight movies. I would have never guessed that. It does not sound like him. It sounds like, just a ridiculous cartoon man voice. So good for you, dude. You might have a career in voice acting because it was. You weren't completely ridiculous where it was stupid and laughable, but you were so far from your regular, mopey voice that it was special. Yeah, yeah. Ugh. So I think this movie is a lovely thing to watch. I definitely recommend it for people who just like, good, slow, lovely anime. Miyazaki fans, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I think you'll enjoy it. Maybe you'll feel like something you've already seen, but for me, that was a comfort. Now, for people who don't usually watch Miyazaki stuff, you have to be open-minded to its it doesn't have much of a plot. The way it goes is very, very loose, very silly, very dreamlike. So if you're open-minded to just feeling, not really thinking it through, then it's a nice experience. Is anything in it too scary for children? Maybe some parts are more creepy than actually terrifying, so I think it'll mentally scar kids either way. But, I don't know, the big happy ending anyway. Yeah, it kind of evens it out, at least for me. So I think this is an easy film to enjoy, but I can understand how it's not for everyone because not everyone is into the aesthetic and the dreamlike quality. But that's just my opinion. Watch it, make up your own.